And so we are now at the conclusion of this series of videos that I do every year. And for starters, if you actually watched all those videos and now you're watching this one, thank you very much for indulging me. That's greatly appreciated. Like I said in yesterday's video, or as I was alluding to, it is a little bit superfluous that I do this every year. I mean, after doing it, at least twice, seeing as how it's on the internet, it's pretty much going to be there forever. And that's true. I find that with each passing year I do this, not just these videos, but literally me doing videos as a whole, while I like to believe that I myself haven't changed as well as, my personality and, how I think, there are so many things around me that have changed in my environment. And I'm not just talking, physically, like, the weather or my daily routine. It's been said that every couple of years, we always find ourselves in a much different place than we were at the beginning of those couple of years. And I really do believe that to be true. Which brings me to this particular video. And specifically asking the question, what are my final thoughts on this? Because again, with each year that goes by, things change. Well, some things change. I mean, it may just be due to stubbornness, but I really am the kind of person that if I'm wrong, or if something bad happens to me, I'm not really the kind of person that forgives easily. I do forgive eventually. I'd say on average, provided that, okay, let's say for the sake of example, someone does me wrong, but they never do wrong by me again. And when I mean wrong, I mean really wrong. And trust me, there have been individuals in my life that have done this. If they do wrong by me, but they never screw up again, I would say it takes me about 10 years for me to forgive them. Which is why, if you recall what I said last Sunday, in regards to those kids that all that time ago I said I'm going to kill you to, I forgave them. I mean, I barely ever saw them again after that. I mean, I say barely ever saw them again. This was in 7th grade. 8th grade, some of them I did see, but by the time we all got to high school in a much bigger environment with more students, I could probably count on my hand the number of times I saw, any of them. And any of those times really weren't bad either. So, yeah, okay. I could forgive them. And I also learned that even if things wind up going your way, either A, the outcome may not be what you expected, or B, nothing really would change in the long run from where they are now had everything happened the way it previously did. Again, like I said on Sunday, in regards to that one girl that chose the other guy over me, because at the time I was in the special education program, if I wind up dating that girl, I don't think much changes in the realm of, who she's married to now. Like, she's married to like another guy with like 2 kids. I really don't think that would have changed. I still think she would have found that same guy. She'd still have the 2 kids she has now. Again, the only thing that changes is if, her kids ask her, who'd you date before, you met their dad, before she met their dad, she'd be saying my name instead of, the guy she chose over me back then. Speaking of the other guy she chose over me back then, man, I tell you what, there was a time where I really couldn't stand that guy. Interestingly enough, throughout high school, that guy wound up being a fairly good guy to me. I dare go so far as to say that he was the inspiration for one very important lesson that, I learned in these last 16 years and now 1 week. And that is, when you get down to it, regardless of the environment that you're in, good or bad, it really is the people that matter. Yes, finding the right people can be a bit of a trial and error process. But eventually you find the right people who you really can consider a friend. A friend of mine on Facebook once made a post. I mean, every now and again, some friends of mine on Facebook will put something like inspirational that, not only do you read, but makes you feel good. And not to sound dirty, but I'm actually easy to please. And I once read a post that says, find people that will lift you up rather than bring you down. And you know what? That's exactly what I at least feel. I think I've done over the years. Again, granted, that kind of mentality and way of thinking is only just recently started to bear fruit in maybe the last year and a half. But, better late than never, I suppose. Of course, then again, I'm also the kind of guy that, I'll finally get married one day, and I'm still going to be mad at myself thinking, why didn't I get married sooner? Why couldn't I find that one person I needed sooner? Needed in my life, that is. Oh well. Again, that really is just my way of thinking. Stubbornness and whatnot. In regards to what I said last Saturday, when my father first saw me wrestle for Trinity Pauling at the Loomis Chaffee Dual Meet tournament, I alluded to the first kid I actually did wrestle, because my first match was a forfeit, was from Avon Old Farms. Easily one of Trinity Pauling's biggest rivals, actually. Another all-boys school, actually. And I lost to that kid at the Canterbury Christmas Invitational. Again, for those of you who don't know, for at least a little bit. Paris Hilton actually went there. I'll put that for you. And I lost that kid in sudden death. When I wrestled that, from the time I wrestled that kid again at the Loomis Chaffee Dual Meet Tournament, I never lost to him again. I wrestled him 2 more times after that, and each match, to that kid's credit, did get progressively more difficult for me to win. Granted, and I mentioned this once before, whenever wrestling season started for me, of course I was pumped. Of course it was exciting. This is a sport I'm actually pretty good at. Well, I would say I got good at it eventually. But by the end of the season, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want this season to end. It's stressful. I just want it to be done. So between that level of thinking, by like, January, February, and again, the kid from Avon got progressively more difficult to beat. Yeah, of course, my final time I ever wrestled him, it was one of the hardest matches I ever had at that point. Because I was just spent. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. Although speaking of the kid from Avon, I actually did get to know him throughout the course of that year, and he was a really sweet guy. I wonder how he's doing. I bet, I'm sure he's probably living a pretty decent life. I couldn't tell you what he's doing. Again, I haven't seen him since I last wrestled him, but he was a sweet guy. Speaking of sweet guys, I don't think he'd be at Avon Old Farms anymore either, but like the wrestling coach there, he was like one of the coolest guys ever, actually. Like, he saw me, like, weighing well over 200 pounds running cross country, and he immediately took a liking to me, which, okay. He was a cool guy. Then that just goes to the fact that wrestling really gave me a lot. And the fact I'm still here to talk about that means it gave me much more than I ever thought possible. And I forgot to mention and I alluded to this on, Saturday as well. When Andrew Einstein had passed away, this was right before the winter break. And to the credit of all of my brothers, who would ultimately save my life due to their collective unity in regards to that time, they all pressed on. But we still had to go back when winter break was over. And man, that genuinely was depressing. But we all did get through it together. And I want to really make one thing clear. When everybody got together, and keep in mind, Trinity Pawling, you think it's like a college prep school, and it's like a bunch of, rich, snooty, upper class, born with spoon in mouth, probably white people who, wouldn't know, what hard work is, and everything was, handed to them. That really couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah, it did cost a relatively pretty penny to send your son to Trinity Pawling. It did. But there were so many walks of life at Trinity Pawling from all over the world. There was no color. well, actually, I shouldn't, let me back up. When Andrew Einstein died, at that point, there was no color. There was no race. There was no religion, no creed, no nationality, no country of origin. The only word that really seemed to matter was brother. And that was the first time I ever learned what brotherhood means. Only now do I just realize that in spite of how, discouraging things have been in life, and trust me, I've lived through some pretty sad times. I always maintain hope that I feel that level of, love again. I mean, it wasn't until college I realized, why being put in special ed really wasn't good for me. And when I was able to piece together, that it was my parents that ultimately made that decision, yeah, I was mad. In fact, to this day, I'm still mad. I almost want to say that there's no hope I'll ever forgive him for it. I mean, now I say this. I'm sure at some point, listen, if there's one thing I definitely learned is that we all gotta go sometime. Last April I just lost my grandmother. My dad lost his mom. So, of course there's a chance that I'll lose my parents someday. And considering that between putting me in special ed and then sending me to treatment in Denver back in 2018, there was about a 5-year period that I actively refused to say, I love you to my mom and dad. When my parents go, it is going to hit me hard. It is absolutely going to hit me hard. I dare say if I make it through that and I wind up not crying, you really can't call me a monster. If that's any indication. I'm sure I'll probably, try and remain strong in that period of time, but I know something's just going to cause me to snap and break down and cry. But hopefully that'll be a long time from now. Ideally, I would like it to be 30 years from now. My parents are in their, mid-60s, so ideally I could see my parents living to 90, in their 90s. My grandfather just turned 90 back in March. So, my mom says I actually have good genes. I think they're from my grandfather, on my father's side, that is. My grandfather on mother's side passed away right before the pandemic began. So, my 2020 was terrible before the pandemic started. I still hold out some hope. In spite of everything, that, you know what? Let me back up for a second. for all the times I've ever been mad at my mom and dad, in regards to not just what I mentioned earlier, but anything else I've ever done. Because my parents have made some pretty bonehead decisions about my life. And believe me, I royally got bit in the ass for each and every one. I've argued with them. We've yelled at each other. In regards to my mom, there were months at a time where we didn't even speak. And this is back when I lived with my parents. The one thing they've never wavered on is that I have a lot to offer. For the life of me, I couldn't tell you what that is. But it's one of the few things that I genuinely believe. It sounds rather silly, but it's true. I mean, maybe it is doing these videos. Because every now and again, I'll run into someone or someone will comment saying, you know, how positive I am or how I'm the realest person they've ever seen or just continue to be you. And, I mean, yeah, of course it makes me feel awesome. You kidding me? It's great. I love that. Why couldn't I get that more often? But that's not, I mean, ideally, of course it happened every day, but I know it's not. I'm not naive enough to believe that's how the world works. But, and that's actually one thing I'm going to talk about on December 31st. It's patience. You know, if I had to go through a whole lot of boring, mundane, sometimes even aggravating moments just to get to stuff like, you know, even a simple compliment being that awesome, I guess I'll deal. And if you're really patient enough, it makes those good things all the more worthwhile. Which, whether I realized it or not at the time, is why I'm still here. It's why I stopped contemplating suicide. Because there have been many things that are worthwhile after going through a whole lot of, you know, blood, sweat, and tears. You know, it seems repetitious to say, considering I've said this literally a week ago, but I got to graduate college. I got to ride 4 100-mile bike rides for charity, 2 of which were for JDRF, and the other 2 were for the Food Bank of the Southern Tier. I ran 1 half marathon and 4 full ones. I went from, I've lost a whole lot of weight in the process. I mean, granted, yeah, I did take it kind of far at one point. In fact, if you watch my earliest videos, you can clearly see that. But I went from being very much overweight, out of shape, literally wanting to quit in the middle of running the Red Baron half marathon, to losing a whole bunch of weight, keeping it off, and running 4 full marathons. I mean, for reference, it's been quite a while since I've weighed myself, but I estimate anywhere between 60 to 70 pounds I've kept off. Again, it was actually a lot more, but that's when I was taking things way the hell too far. I mean, I can't really say what I'm about to say because technically I would be saying it, but yeah, maybe there was some merit into, my parents sending me away to Denver. But I'm never going to say that to my parents' face. And I say that and now it's on the internet forever. And my folks are never going to see this. Not unless someone actually finds it and shows this part to them. And there have been times where, yeah, I myself have been pushing my breaking point. I absolutely have. I've made some stupid decisions in the past. Sure I have. I got myself into some bad habits that I broke. I made some dumb calls. I said things I wish I shouldn't have. I'll acknowledge that. I mean, I guess at this point, and keep in mind, I tend to overthink things critically. So, in the grand scheme of things, if I'm still alive, that means I clearly haven't done anything that bad. But I can say I made some pretty good choices in life. Sure. And I can say that I've been through a lot of bad times too. I mean, I've gotten rejected or heartbroken numerous times. Again, just like I said last Saturday, my story ends when I one day go. So I really can't say there's a definitive happy ending. There's just an ending. I'm just living life in present that I'm content with. Content in the sense that it is far from perfect. But I get to be able to say that. And you know what? That's pretty darn good to me. And there are some things that still haven't gone well that, that still bother me. I mean, pretty clear that I still don't have a girlfriend. And I will admit, one of the reasons why I was making videos was because there was one girl I wanted to notice me, but she never did. In fact, she didn't really notice me until I finally saw her in person again. And then the pandemic happened. And that's when she found somebody else. But you know what? I get to see my nephews. See, the reason why I never went out to see that girl when the pandemic started was because before at least my twin nephews were born, my brother and I got into a really big fight. I'd rather not get into the details why, but for the entirety of my sister-in-law's first pregnancy with my twin nephews, my brother and I didn't speak. I mean, I went to important events like, the baby shower and the gender reveal. I did all that. But it wasn't up until about a week before my twin nephews were born that my brother and I, I say made up. he really just called and asked if he can depend on me to be there for my nephews. Which, considering that I literally got my heart broken because I chose my nephews, I like to say I'm there for my nephews. Okay? So, boys, if for whatever reason you're watching this, your Uncle Nick loves you. And I do. Just like I said about my brother last Friday, I really could stand to, say stuff like that more. I really could. One of the reasons why I don't is because, listen, the fact I'm making videos every day means I'm clearly much less introverted than my brother is. I don't know what I would consider myself, introverted or extroverted. I really don't. I would say I'm either much more extroverted than my brother or much less introverted than my brother. I'll say that. But between the two of us, you're gonna likely find me doing more stuff that everybody else is doing than, he is. That doesn't I wouldn't say that makes me a follower. I'm just doing whatever makes me feel comfortable. My point is, my brother tends to live a relatively quiet and, much less bombastic lifestyle than I do. I say bombastic, all I do is make videos every day. He tends to keep quiet is what I mean. He's not going to post things on social media. He's not going to do anything, crazy or out of the ordinary like I would. I almost say he and I are complete opposites of one another. Oftentimes I'll make a joke saying, you're either going to like or hate my brother for the exact opposite reason you either like or hate me. So take that what you will. But it doesn't change what I said the other day. My brother's he's a good guy. Devoted husband, a devoted father. He really is the ideal family man that any guy worth their weight in salt would strive to be. And I'm happy that he's in my life. He's doing fine, by the way. I'm not like alluding, and he's doing fine. He's doing perfectly fine. Just I'm trying to emphasize how much I care in my own crazy way. I tell you what, doing this series of videos, while sometimes it is emotionally draining, I gotta say, I always feel really good when they're done. Because, I stop recording and I'm like, I forgot to say something. It's not gonna hit me too much later that I forgot to say whatever it is I forgot to say. But this year, for the 7th time, I got to say my piece. And with each year, I feel much better. I feel much better and much better as it keeps going. So, having said all of that, and having been about as transparent as I could possibly be about this sort of thing, I can feel very comfortable saying my life is in no way perfect in any way, shape, or form. Much like everybody else, I have my own problems. But the fact I get to have them at all, I'll take that. If I gotta go through a whole lot of nonsense just to find something that makes me smile, well, that's worth it. Because every day is a gift. Every day is a new opportunity for something really good to happen. Sometimes it doesn't work out. But over time, you learn to get used to it. You learn to meet people that really do care. It's the people that matter. Family, specifically. I was about to go into a spiel about, my family, my brothers and Shorty Pauling, the good people I've reconnected with in the 607. But family is whatever you make of it. And specifically, you guys know who you are. You guys are the reason why I'm still here. It took a while to get to that point, but I'm here now, and for better or for worse, I'll happily accept it. So, this is fun. I am beyond humbled that I was able to share this with all of you guys today. I am ever hopeful that you were able to share this story, share what I've said today. Maybe you can use it to help yourself if you're feeling down, or use those. If anyone is feeling down, and what I've said in this series of videos that I've done winds up helping them, even if it was just one person, that'd be great. I'd be over the moon if that ever happened. Well, I've been doing this for the last 7 years, so over time that's only going to increase. So, yeah, that could happen. Which reminds me, if you are feeling depressed, especially around this time of year, because, this is the holiday season. Lots of people feel depressed at this time of year. If you're feeling down in any way, shape, or form, please go talk to somebody. Even talking to one person for 5 minutes, provided that they're able to listen to you, really can make a world of difference. So, remember, if you ever do need to talk, I'm always going to be here. I'll have at least one ear open for it. Take care. And in the words of my perspectives in drugs teacher back in my senior year at Horseheads, my best year at Horseheads, make good choices. Thank you.